Welcome to Dr. Krystal's podcast, Inspiring Sacred Stories. I am your host, Dr. Krystal, a doctor of East Asian medicine and a holistic transformational coach. Here we will shine light on wisdom keepers, paradigm shifters who inspire us to live thriving, joyful lives. Let's be inspired. Although I am a doctor of East Asian medicine, this podcast is for educational and inspirational purposes only. It does not replace professional medical advice. Please consult a qualified healthcare provider for guidance on your personal health needs. Welcome. Thank you for joining us at the Dr. Krystal podcast, Inspiring Sacred Stories. Today's guest is my brother from another mother, Callan Welder, who is a father of three, a husband, a land steward, and owner of Marshall Acupuncture Clinic and Herbs. Thank you so much for being here, Callan. So we start off the podcast asking, what does sacred mean to you? How would you define sacred?
Great question. All right, let me drop in. Sacred is about honoring, and it's about offering, it's about connecting, it's about being in the present moment, shining your heart. Yeah, I think that's a good place to start.
Yeah. Oh, I love all of those things. You know, Callan and I went to acupuncture school together, 15 years ago, and our path has interwoven in many different ways, and learning and cultivating sacredness is something we both have done a lot of work together. And, you know, you owning that land and being a steward to such sacred, beautiful land. So, you know, this podcast is about sharing sacred stories. So I would love to hear the story that you would like to share today.
Sure. So the story that is up is about Hurricane Helene, which blew through Western North Carolina just under a year ago. The anniversary is coming up next weekend. I think it's September 27th. So, oh, wow. Yeah, it was about this time last year. You know, we could start seeing this hurricane brewing out in the ocean. And, you know, it's always interesting to see if we're going to get some tropical weather out of these systems. And but little did we know what we were in for. We were preparing for a sacred workshop. We were hosting an event called the Nusta Carpi, which is a Peruvian Andean nature mysticism course to honor feminine nature land spirits. And we were hosting this on the weekend that Helene came. We were about to receive about 50 people on the land. And so on Thursday, I was wrapping up in the office down in Marshall. So my acupuncture clinic is in Marshall, North Carolina, right on the French Broad River. And we had already been getting like 2 full days of torrential rains before the hurricane ever even made landfall. I think they called it a Fujiwara effect, where 2 systems come together and get slingshotted, and one system slingshots another one. And so this system that we were getting, this 2 days of rain, basically slingshotted Helene right into the mountains. And so Thursday was pretty crazy because I was wrapping up in the clinic, and the river was already super big, super flooded. The island, we have a beautiful island in the river, and it was already underwater. So I was a bit concerned, but my clinic is in an old warehouse, and it's over 100 years old, and never has river been inside the building. So I wasn't too concerned that it would be flooded in there, but I lifted some things off the floor, got some things off the floor. I was like, yeah, you know, maybe an inch or two of water could happen.
Mm.
So, yeah, came home. Friday was the day where people were going to start coming for the weekend workshop. So I got home and I had a couple of friends already out here to help get ready. And Friday morning is when the hurricane came through. And it was pretty massive. I mean, obviously. Um,
Mm.
but for us on the farm here, we kind of made it through uh, pretty well. We only got about 11 inches of rain throughout the whole storm. So that was a lot of water, but we've had that before. And so the hurricane came through, and then my friend Sheila and I were like, well, let's go down to the river and just see what the river looks like, because maybe we can still have the workshop. So we drove down to the river, and
Mm.
it was shooting over the bridge. Like
Yeah.
the bridge, which is 40 feet above the water, was
Mm.
basically underwater. And that is when we realized, oh my God, we have had a
Yeah.
tremendous storm. So the next day, Saturday, Sheila and I went down to Marshall. We wanted to see what Marshall looked like.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we came in down this road called Hill Street, and when we got down, it was just right then and there, it was jaw dropping. The river was still in the middle of the streets, flowing
Yeah.
right through Main Street, and the peak was sometime the night before, so the water was obviously coming down by then. We
Okay.
made it down all the way down to the street right in front of the courthouse, and we were like the only people there in town, and
Yeah.
the river's rushing through. And so my clinic is on the other side of the river, and the
Right.
bridge that goes over there was still completely underwater. So I couldn't get to the clinic. Um, so we had to wait another day and come in from the backside of Marshall. And so Sunday was the first time I got into the office, and it was just absolutely completely destroyed. Um,
Oh gosh.
there was, I think we had about 5 or 6 feet of water in the clinic,
Mm.
which was actually pretty good compared to a lot of the other businesses in Marshall, which had uh, 15, 16 feet of river water in a lot of the buildings on Main Street. I mean, it just flushed out everything that was in the first floor of the whole town. We lost about 15 buildings altogether,
Oh.
just completely washed away.
Yeah.
Um, so that took, you know, it was this wild. I mean, it was this complete surrender to what was happening. Um, and the ensuing week we had to get in there and get everything out of the clinic and bring it all back to the farm. And I think we had like 3 trucks and a couple of trailers, and just piled everything up and brought it home, and spent the next several weeks just desilting what I
Mm.
could. I saved a few things, but it was pretty much a total wash at the end of the day. uh,
Right. So you grew up in Marshall. What was that
yeah,
like for you to see your downtown
horrifying. um,
devastated,
yeah,
basically?
we had the historic flood of 1916, which had a storm surge. I, I'm gonna not have the numbers right, but
That's okay.
just say it was like 20 feet storm surge. Well, the Helene storm surge was like 6 to 8 feet more than the historic flood of 1916. So uh, nobody alive has ever seen a storm like this. Um, and I mean, we're just talking about Marshall, the whole entire region, Asheville, you know, just so many towns, so many communities, so much destruction, so many lost lives. It was, the magnitude was outrageous, and and a year later, we're still picking up the pieces. You wouldn't believe
Yeah.
how much effort, how much work, how many people, how much money, how much support has been funneled into this region. And, we're still, although the cleanup is pretty much over, there's just so much more rebuilding that needs to take place.
Right.
But in terms of my clinic, the miracle and the magic of the whole experience was a friend of mine was like, well, we're going to have to get you a GoFundMe campaign.
Mm.
I'm like, well, okay. She's like, how much money do you want to raise? I'm like, I don't know, 5,000. She's like, you're going to have to go way more than that. I'm like, really? I'm going to get more than $5,000? Go. She said, go big. I'm like, all right, $50,000.
Yeah.
Um, so uh, we started the campaign, and it was just amazing. I had money coming in from just all over the country.
Mm.
People were supporting not just my clinic, but everywhere, just all the businesses.
Yeah.
But between raising money at the GoFundMe, and I even got two or three different grants came through, um, and
Mm.
so all of this ensued through the winter time, last winter. And my teacher allowed me to come and work in his clinic in Asheville while I was rebuilding my clinic in Marshall. And so I reopened beginning of March, and it's just been such a blessing in disguise. So many silver linings. The clinic is just so much better than it
Mm.
was before. The Feng Shui is better. Everything fits better. Everything was bought specifically for the space. I hired a Feng Shui consultant. We had biogeometry. We just really put so much effort into just creating this amazing clinic.
Mm.
And so now it's like so much better than my wildest dreams. So there's,
Mm.
such a interesting process that happened, going through that experience.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. And how is downtown Marshall now?
Yeah, so it's I can't speak enough to the power of community.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
Literally the day after the storm, people came out of the woodworks with their track hose, with their dump trucks, with their shovels, with their trucks, with their families, and I mean,
Yeah.
the power and like FEMA really didn't show up forever. It was just us. It was just the community doing it, grassroots, um, homegrown, come together and get her done type of attitude. And so it was just remarkable to watch that, just the
Yeah.
love and the support of feeling like you belong to something way bigger than yourself. So now a year later, yeah,
Mm.
many of the businesses are way better than they were before. Like my story with my clinic. I think many of the business owners in town would say the same thing. It ended up that their storefronts and their restaurants and the coffee shop and the little hotel and the all the little restaurants and businesses are better than they were. The whole thing was just
Mm.
like a whole huge transformation. We did lose a lot of buildings, and that's going to just take a long time uh, to repair basically the part of town where the river comes in. When it came out of when it went over the railroad tracks, it just like took all those initial buildings and just they were gone. And
Oh,
so
wow.
that part of town is just basically still fenced off. Um,
Okay.
so it's still a stark, you know, sight to see. And at the same time, there's a lot of we're calling it, storm tourism,
Oh,
tourism. So there's a lot of people are coming just to see and to support and to be a part of what happened. So many of the businesses are actually doing quite well right now. There's just a lot of people curious, a lot of
mm.
tourists coming to see what's going on.
Well, I love all of that. Thank you. I went through the hurricane as well in a different way. I didn't get hit quite as hard as you and your clinic, but just that collective grief, of wow, you just didn't think a storm could come in that powerful and just wipe stuff out, wipe communities out. And, I had a friend in a mudslide who almost died. And, but that silver lining and that beauty of seeing all my neighbors come out, like we were all out on the street because we didn't have cell phone, we didn't have water, we didn't have electricity, we didn't have Wi-Fi, and trees were down everywhere. I couldn't even leave my street. But then eventually neighbors with chainsaws came to clear the way so that we could get off our street. But we were cooking food for each other. People who had generators would get the generators going. And I met neighbors I didn't even know that I had. And so, yeah, that was the silver lining and the magic and the healing of community. And there's a saying that when there's, of course, when there's destruction, on the other side is the rebirth, right? Is the cleansing and the new growth, the new beginning. So I'm so
Yeah.
happy for you. I'm so grateful that your family was safe and that you now have an even better clinic, because I know that you are a stellar practitioner, one of the best that I know, with your qigong and your teachings and the wisdom that you carry with that land, that sacred land that you are on. And so, with that, I'm curious, what is a sacred daily, or it doesn't have to be daily, but a practice that maybe you do daily or maybe you do as a ritual that you would like to share with everybody?
Mhm. Yeah, I think a lot of it, for me, evolves and changes. But one thing stays the same, and that is, continuing to show up. And and so, you know, my life is always changing, and so I'm always adjusting to the change so that I can continue to try to stay in harmony. And
Yeah.
so things, my practice is always moving and adjusting. I typically start the day off with the Qigong practice, and I usually commit to 100-day practice of some kind so that I can really get into it and feel the process unfold and the shifts unfold when you're committing to one specific practice over and over and over again. And so, yeah, currently I'm on like day 94 of a current practice that I've been working on.
Mhm.
And so I'm already kind of cooking up what's coming next. So that's one part, is just the tending to the spirit, tending to the body chi, and cultivating that so that I can be um, a strong father, a strong husband, a strong, coherent container for the clinic and for the patients that come in. But another huge piece is this Andean um, aspect. We both went to Peru together, and
Yeah.
um, and so when we're uh, and we match our farm a lot. It's like holding space here on the farm with land, uh, sacred land sites, and we have stone altars and medicine wheels and power spots that we have created here on the land. And so one of the most beautiful sacred acts is just to get out on the land and call in your sacred beings that hold you and support you. And so for me, it's these mountain spirits, it's these land spirits, it's my ancestors and my higher self. And so offering and connecting and praising and basking in the joy and the beauty, And I mean, it's just absolutely 100% just amazing. And the more you feed, the more you get. The more you
Mm.
give, the more you receive. It's just this beautiful transmission of reciprocity. And so that is just, just right outside the door. It's just
Mm.
you're there, you're in it. And it's amazing, sometimes you get into the grind of work and all these other things, and like that doesn't happen for
Mm.
some time, and then you get heavy with the heaviness of everything, and then you just clear that off, you get reawakened, you remind yourself, you remember. I mean, that's one of the biggest things is, being a practitioner of Chinese medicine and a person who's devoted to spirit and consciousness and awakening and all these things. And my tool bag, and so is yours, is probably huge. Got a massive tool bag.
Yes.
Shit, I forget. Sometimes I just forget. I
Yeah.
gotta remember. I
Mm.
gotta remember, and I need people to remind me.
Yes.
Because even though I have these massive amounts of tools, it doesn't mean I'm this perfect human that's like, you know, a saint sitting in a monastery. I got 3 kids and life is wild, and the
Mm.
heavy energies kind of can come in, but
Yeah.
you know, I don't dwell in it long anymore. I can snap out of it. I guess the more you raise up and lift the consciousness and have the devotion to your spiritual practices, the the heavy energy comes, but it's a quick out. In my earlier teens and 20s and 30s, I might sit in the heavy energy for a week or 2 weeks or half a year or a whole year before
Yeah.
I finally snap out. So I think just the practice gets more refined, it gets more streamlined. You get I don't know, like awareness and just I don't know, there's this like I have zero tolerance to dwell in that space any longer, you know. So even though I dip just like everybody else, I have no tolerance hanging out there for very long.
Yeah. You're like, okay, what is this wanting me to know and take note of and be aware of, and then move it, shift it, right?
Do the work. I got the tools. What tool needs to come out? Let me Swiss Army knife this thing up and move on. Let
You
it go.
know, one of the things I've always admired about you is your willingness and courageousness to dive into something fully. Like if you're going to try something, you don't just look at it on the surface. If you're going to take on a practice to cultivate or learn, you go all in and really embody it, and you really walk the talk, and you practice what you teach to your clients and to your patients, and you really hold it. It may shift, it may change, but you go into places and explore and open to things that some people don't even know about. So I've always admired that about you, and a lot of how that density, we're in the 3D, working our way to higher consciousness, 5D that some say, but it's really important about who we surround ourselves with because they influence us. So having you in my life, whether we get to talk frequently or not that frequently, I know that you're in there. I know that you're in that web of life that I have. And if I need to lean in, I know you're part of my community. You're part of my web that if I'm getting stuck, you can shake that web and help me remember those tools, and I hope I can be that for you as well. So thank you for sharing all of that. What's the best way for someone to reach you?
Well, I don't have a huge social media presence, but I do feel like a lot is being is coming forth right now. This eclipse portal has been massive for me. So I feel like there's a lot that's going to be manifesting soon. But marshalacupuncture.com is my website. And my wife runs the yoga studio in town, which I'm a teacher of. So that is magictownstudio.com. So those are probably the just the landing pages for some of the things that I do and offer.
Great. And they can find you on your website?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Callan. And thank you, everyone, for joining us here at Dr. Krystal's podcast, Inspiring Sacred Stories. In the meantime, remember to be inspired and find the sacred little things of everyday life. Until next time. Thank you for joining me on Dr. Krystal's podcast, Inspiring Sacred Stories. If today's episode lifted you up, I'd love if you shared it with a friend, subscribe, leave a comment. It helps more people discover these stories of light and transformation. And if you'd like to work with me more closely, head over to www.drkrystalkinnunen.com. And as a thank you for listening to the show, you'll receive $20 off your first session. Details are also in the show notes. Remember, in this time of rapid change and transformation, you are not alone. You are part of a greater shift, and your inspired life matters. Until next time, let's be inspired.